The simulation pod hissed open, and a cloud of steam came out that seemed to take away the last bits of Cale Morrison's dreams. He stumbled out, his legs shaking and his hands still holding onto controls that weren't there. The clean white walls of the Galactic Academy's training center felt like they were closing in on him. "Cadet Morrison, stay where you are," said Instructor Velrix, a Tellurian with skin that shone like oil on water. Cale knew that her 3 eyes blinking in a row meant she was disappointed. He stood at attention even though he wanted to fall over. He could see other cadets through the observation window. There was a Zenthari with 4 arms moving controls with impossible grace, and a crystalline Vex whose thoughts literally guided ships through neural interface. They made it look easy. Cale made it look like a disaster. "This is your 9th failure in basic navigation," Velrix said, her tablet showing red error markers that covered the screen like a rash. "Your reaction time is 0.7 seconds too slow. Your spatial awareness is concerning. Your hand-eye coordination lacks the necessary finesse for modern piloting." "I can do better," Cale said, hating how his voice cracked. "Give me another chance." "You are human," interrupted Instructor Corvin, a huge reptilian Soren who was in charge of the piloting program. As he got closer, his scales made a clicking sound. "Your species has some limitations. The neural pathways needed for advanced piloting just aren't as well developed in humans." "This isn't an insult, Cadet Morrison. It's biology." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Biology. As if his whole species was just fundamentally inferior. "But humans have been piloting ships for centuries," Cale weakly protested. "Basic transport vessels, yes," Corvin said in a patient but firm tone, like he was explaining something to a child. "Mining haulers. Cargo freighters. But combat-class vessels? Research explorers? Ships that require split-second decisions across 11 dimensions of space? Human hands simply lack the necessary refinement." Velrix put a gentle hand on Cale's shoulder. "You should be proud of how far you've come. Only 3 people have ever been accepted to the Academy. Just finishing 4 months of training is an achievement in and of itself. 4 months of sleepless nights, gripping the controls so hard that his hands bled, and studying star charts until the stars appeared when he closed his eyes. And all he got was being called an achievement for just showing up." "The board has made its decision," Corvin said, sliding a holographic document across to Cale. "You are no longer in the piloting program effective immediately. You can look for other jobs at the Academy, such as engineering support or administrative services." A fancy way to say maintenance work. Administrative services meant filing reports for pilots who really mattered. Cale didn't remember taking the paper. He didn't remember leaving the training center. The Academy's halls, which used to be full of wonder and possibility, now felt like a maze meant to trap him. Other students walked by, young people from 100 different worlds, all of them moving with purpose and all of them belonging here in a way he never would. Cale sat on his bunk in his room and stared at the dismissal order. The Galactic Academy's official seal shone with sarcasm. A model of a Constellation-class starship sat next to his bed. His father gave it to him before he died. Cale's father had been a cargo hauler his whole life and had saved every credit to send Cale here, believing his son could break through the barriers their species faced. "I'm sorry, Dad," Cale whispered to the empty room. 3 days later, he was on a transport heading back to New Prescott, a dusty colonial outpost on the edge of human-controlled space. It took 2 weeks to get there, which was plenty of time for him to watch his dreams fade away. The other passengers hardly noticed him. A failed cadet was nothing special. He was just another person who had tried too hard. Nothing had changed about New Prescott. It looked even more tired than when Cale left. The settlement was spread out over a rust-red plain, and its prefab buildings were losing the fight against the wind that blew dust into every crack and crevice. There were 4 landing pads and a hangar at the spaceport. The hangar looked like it might fall down if someone sneezed too hard. "Cale Morrison?" The voice came from a stocky woman with gray-streaked hair that was pulled back into a tight bun. "Hi, I'm Beth Carlson, the port administrator. Your mom told me you would be coming." Cale nodded and moved his bag on his shoulder. He could fit all of his things into one duffel bag. The Academy said that living simply would help students grow as people. Now he only had a letter of dismissal to show for 4 months of work. "Your mom wanted to see you in person, but the medical center is too busy. Flu is going around." Beth led him to a worn-out ground transport. "She did get you a job, though. Jenkins needs help at the junkyard. Yard for salvage. From the best school in the galaxy to sorting through scrap metal. If it didn't hurt so much, the irony would have been funny. The salvage yard was on the edge of town and was a huge collection of broken ships, old equipment and metal skeletons of machines that no one wanted anymore. Man Jenkins was just like his name said, old, grumpy and probably older than some of the wrecks he kept. He didn't bother with small talk and asked, "Do you know how to use a plasma torch?" "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. Makes me feel old." "You'll list the salvage that comes in, take off anything useful, and sort the scrap by type. The pay isn't great, but it's honest work." Jenkins looked at him closely. "I heard you dropped out of the academy." Cale's jaw got tight. Word gets around quickly. Little colony. There's not much else to say. Jenkins gave him a data pad and some work gloves. "I don't really care what happened up there. You can get along with us just fine if you show up on time and do your job." The first 2 weeks went by in a blur of hard work. The academy said Cale's hands were too clumsy to fly, but they were just fine for taking apart old engines and sorting scrap. The work was mindless, which was both good and bad. It kept him from thinking about what he had lost, but it also gave him too much time to remember. At night, he'd lie in his childhood bedroom at his mother's house and look up at the ceiling, where he could see the controls for the simulation pod. Hearing the voice of Instructor Corvin, "People's hands just don't have the right level of skill." Sarah Morrison, his mother, worked 2 shifts at the medical center and still had time to cook dinner every night. Cale could see the questions in her eyes, along with something worse, pity. She never asked about the academy directly. "There's no shame in honest work," she said one night as she handed him mashed potatoes. "Yes, Mom. Your father also worked in the salvage yard. He worked his way up to owning his own truck." "I know." She reached across the table and held his hand. "Cale, you're only 22. You have time to sort things out." But time wasn't the problem. It was direction. He had known what he wanted since he was 8 years old and saw ships flying across the sky. That path was now blocked and he couldn't see any others. 3 weeks into his new life, on a Wednesday he had a breakthrough. Jenkins had gotten a new haul, a bunch of tools from an old mining operation that had closed down decades ago. A lot of it was junk, but people who salvaged learned how to find the valuable needles in the junk haystack. "There's something strange in Sector 7, yelled Marcus, one of the other workers. "Look at this, Morrison." Cale made his way through the maze of old machines. Sector 7 was the oldest part of the yard, where things went to die. Marcus stood next to what looked like a pile of metal panels, but they had a strange shine to them that made them look almost organic. "Found it buried under 3 layers of colony trash. Readings are all over the place. I keep getting interference like something is going on, but the power cells are completely dead." Marcus kicked one of the panels. "Since you went to the academy, I thought you might know what it is." Cale knelt next to the panels and ran his hand over the top. It didn't make sense that the metal was warm to the touch. He took out a scanner and ran it over the stuff. The readings made it hard for him to breathe. The piece was not like anything else in the database right now. It had some parts of human alloys, but the way the molecules were arranged was so complicated that it was almost like living tissue. The scanner found layers of technology that he had only read about in history books. These were from before Earth joined the Galactic Council 300 years ago, when humans were still building things. "Help me get this off," Cale said, his heart racing all of a sudden. It took 4 hours to dig up. What came out wasn't a pile of panels. It was something that had been buried on purpose and forgotten about. A boat. Or at least part of one. The cockpit and front hull of a ship that Cale had never seen before. It was lovely. Modern ships had sharp angles and utilitarian designs, but this one had curves that looked like water frozen in metal. The hull had markings on it. They weren't scratches or damage. They were deliberate engravings that made patterns that Cale almost recognized. Like a language he had forgotten he knew. "What in the world is this?" Marcus took a breath. Cale couldn't say anything. He was too busy looking at the pilot's seat, which he could see through a broken canopy. It spoke to him in a way that reminded him of a dream. "I have to buy this," he said. When Jenkins heard, he looked at him like he was crazy. "Do you really want to buy that piece of junk? For about 200 years, kid, it's been dead. No power, no engine, nothing at all. It would be better for you to buy a broken toaster." "How much?" The old man scratched his chin. "Your monthly pay." "But really, Morrison, this is a waste of deal." Cale stood alone in the salvage yard that night, looking at what he had bought. Under New Prescott's 3 moons, the ship was quiet and cast strange shadows that seemed to move even when the light didn't. He put his hand on the hull. For a second he could have sworn he felt it throb with warmth, like a heart. As if it were waiting for something. As if it were waiting for him. Cale spent all of his free time with the ship. Jenkins let him move it to a quiet part of the salvage yard where he could work without the other workers bothering him. Not that he knew the answers. The more he learned, the less sense it made. Fusion cores and quantum drives were used in modern ships. This ship had a different kind of power system that looked more like a living thing than a machine. The conduits branched out like veins, and the central chamber looked more like a heart than an engine. He kept going in circles when he tried to figure out the systems, as if the ship's design was meant to be illogical. The control interface was even weirder. There were no buttons or switches, just smooth surfaces with the same flowing patterns he had seen on the hull. They made him think of something, pulling at a memory he couldn't quite get. His mother saw that he had changed. He came home later, ate quickly, and didn't say much before going to his room to study old engineering books he had downloaded from the colony's small database. "Kale, sweetie, what's going on?" she asked on the 5th night. "Mom, I found something in the yard. A ship, an old one. Very old. I think it's before the Federation." Her face changed and something flashed across it too quickly to read. Before the Federation? That would mean it is more than 300 years old. I know it sounds crazy, but the design and the materials... Mom, I've never seen anything like it. It's not like anything we make now. Sarah Morrison slowly put her coffee cup down. Your father used to talk about old human ships. This was before we joined the Galactic Council and started using their technology. He said that our ancestors built things differently and that we had our own way of reaching the stars. Did he ever say he saw any? No. During the integration period, they were all supposed to be lost or destroyed. The Council wanted everyone to use the same kind of technology. She gave him a careful look. Kale, if this is really a ship from before the Federation, there may be people who don't want it to be found. Why? Because it shows a time when people did things their own way. We were told we weren't good enough before. Kale had never heard a voice like hers before. Watch out. Kale made his first real progress 2 weeks into his obsession. He was cleaning years of dirt off the pilot's seat when he saw something. A small, perfectly shaped dent in the armrest. He pressed his thumb against it without thinking. The ship came to life with an explosion. There was no bang or flash, so not literally. Instead, soft, golden light filled the cockpit, flowing through the vein-like conduits in waves that felt alive. The control surfaces started to shine, and the patterns changed and moved around. Then there was a noise. A deep, resonant hum, like a voice speaking in frequencies that are just below hearing. It shook Kale's bones, hurt his teeth, and touched something deep inside his chest that made him feel like he knew what it was. He pulled his hand back quickly, his heart racing. The light went out. The humming stopped. The ship was quiet again. But something was different. The air in the cockpit felt different, charged and ready. Hey. In the small space, Kale's voice sounded small. Is someone there? Nothing. He reached for the armrest again, hesitated, and then pushed his thumb hard against the indentation. This time the ship woke up faster. The golden light spread like dawn breaking and the hum came back. This time, though, Kale could hear something in it, something that made sense but not words. Purpose. A question. Who are you? He didn't have the idea. It had come to him fully formed, with a weight and age that he had never felt before. Kale, he said quietly. Kale Morrison. I found you. I bought you at the junkyard. The light pulsed and another thought came to mind. This one had a hint of what felt like amusement? Found. Not bought. Found. You're alive? Are you alive? I'm awake. I was sleeping. Sleeping for a long time. You woke me up. Oh. I just touched, recognizing blood. You are the heir to the family. Whose descendant? You are his descendant. The ship's answer came in a flood of pictures. A tall, weathered man standing right here in this cockpit. His hands moved over controls that felt like they were part of his body. Kale gasped at his face. The bone structure and the eyes were like looking in a mirror that was 50 years old. Captain James Morrison. My pilot. My partner. My buddy. Kale breathed, Morrison. That's my last name. But this ship is more than 300 years old. Are you saying, your great-great-great-grandfather? Maybe another great. When you sleep, time seems to go by faster. He took me across the empty space. We touched the edges of what is real. We laughed at things that couldn't happen. If you could call it a voice, the ship's voice was very sad. Then came the merging. The Galactic Council and their better ways. They said that people had to use Council technology. Must give up old-fashioned human designs. Must become a part of the whole. But that was supposed to be a peaceful time. Joining on purpose. Optional. The ship's tone made it clear how it felt about that word. They said that technology made by humans wasn't very useful. Risky. They said that human pilots didn't have the skills needed for real spaceflight. They said a lot of things. Cale's fists tightened. The Academy had told him the same things. The same dismissal, the same basic rejection of what people can do. What happened to Captain Morrison? To my ancestor? He fought to keep me. But the Council said they had to follow the rules. All ships that were built before the Federation must be taken out of service. Used again. Gone. James hid me here, in this colonial waste, buried me deep, and hoped that someone with his blood would find me again. The light got stronger and Cale felt something go through him, not his body but something deeper. His DNA, his brain patterns, the very way he is built. Yes, you are his blood. You have the touch. The skill. The gift that runs in some human lines. What gift? The Academy told me I couldn't fly. Said that humans don't have the skill. The ship's response sounded like laughter, deep, rolling, and almost happy. Fools. They check to see if their ways work. Their neural connections. Their math in 3 dimensions. They don't know what the real pilot's gift is. The ability to merge mind and machine, to feel the ship as body, and to fly not with controls but with will. That can't happen. Cybernetic implants are needed for neural interfacing, alien requirements. Pilots don't need implants. Your ancestor flew me with only his hands and his mind. We were fully connected. Great. And you? The light reached out and wrapped tendrils of gold around Cale's hands as they rested on the seat. You have his gift. Maybe stronger. No. Not affected by council doctrine. Show me what? Let me show you. What you really are. The ship rushed through Cale's nervous system before he could say anything. Not painful but the opposite. It was like waking up and suddenly all the doors in his mind that he didn't know were there flew open. The cockpit was gone and all that was left was feeling. He could feel the hull of the ship like his own skin. Could feel every system like organs in his body. The engine was still there but it wasn't running. It pulsed with possible heartbeats. The sensor arrays were like eyes that could see things that normal eyes couldn't. The navigation systems were like instincts that knew where each star was. And the controls? Oh, the controls. They weren't levers or buttons. They were extra thoughts. He didn't have to touch them. He just had to want them and they did what he wanted. The ship whispered, this is what they were afraid of. People who could connect with ships in ways that their implants and interfaces can't. We flew together as one. We all had the same thoughts. We couldn't be stopped. The vision faded and Cale was left gasping in the pilot's seat with tears streaming down his face. Not because he was sad but because he knew that what had just happened was so right. He had been missing this at the Academy. He was meant to do this. Teach me, he said softly. Please. Teach me everything you know. The ship's light pulsed warmly, and for the first time in months, Cale felt something he thought he'd never feel again. Oh, yes, young Morrison. I will show you how. But first I need to fix things. I need strength. I need to remember how to fly again. And you? What? You need to remember what your kind forgot. That you were never less than. You were just different. And back then, before the council came with their rules and judgments, being different was amazing. Cale put both of his hands on the control surfaces and felt them warm to the touch. Then let's do something amazing. Cale's life changed in ways he could never have imagined over the next 3 months. During the day he kept working at the salvage yard, sorting through scrap and pretending to be the failed Academy washout. He worked on the ship at night and whenever he had free time. Or to put it another way, he worked with the ship. The ship called itself Revenant, but that wasn't quite right. The name was a rough translation of something more complicated that meant one who returns from sleep, or ghost made flesh, depending on how you looked at it. Your language doesn't have enough words to say my full name, Revenant said during their second full conversation. I thought it was funny that Captain James called me Ref. People like to give nicknames to everything, even old warships. Warship. Cale had stopped welding on a broken power line. You're a ship of war? Once you fix my systems it will be again. I was made during the expansion era, when humans first left the solar system and found the galaxy to be less welcoming than they had hoped. Cale knew the basics of history. The first 100 years of humanity in deep space were hard. They had met dozens of other species, most of which had been traveling through space for thousands of years. Fights had broken out over land, resources, and misunderstandings. Humanity didn't find its place in the larger civilization until the Galactic Council helped with the integration. Or had it? The Council's version of history is sanitized, Revenant said as if he could read his mind. The ship had done a disturbingly good job of that. They show people as primitive newcomers who are thankful to be lifted up by better civilizations. The truth is more complicated. What's the truth? That scared them about people. Kale almost dropped his torch for welding. What? Your kind came into the galaxy with no points of reference. There is no standard technology or shared philosophy. You made ships that didn't follow the rules of physics. You came up with ways to bond that seemed like magic to species that had forgotten they were possible. And you were aggressive, not just in a military way but in your desire to grow, your curiosity, and your refusal to accept limits. Kale had learned to recognize intensity in the ship's light. The Council saw a species that could upset the order they had kept for thousands of years. So they offered people a deal: join us, use our technology, and become part of our systems. We'll let you into the galaxy in return. And what if we said no? That choice wasn't really available. The Council has ways to make sure that people follow the rules. Revenant's voice got darker. Pressure from the economy. Strategic blockades. They didn't say they would go to war, but they made it clear that humanity's growth would be limited if they stayed independent. So we sold out, Kale said angrily. People made a choice. Maybe it was the right choice. Your kind has done well in many ways since joining the Council. But some things were lost. Technologies from the past. Old ways of thinking. And ships like me. As Kale worked on Revenant systems over the weeks, the ship taught him what it was really like to be a human pilot. Revenant said, the gift runs in bloodlines. Not everyone has it, but those who do have a neural structure that lets them truly work together with some machines. It's not telepathy or psychic power. It's the ability to connect with complicated systems on an intuitive level and process information in more than one dimension at the same time. The Academy said that was impossible for people. For most people, it is. But the Morrison line in your blood has always been strong. Your ancestor could fly me through dimensional rifts that would break the minds of less skilled pilots. He could respond to threats before sensor arrays picked them up. He could feel changes in space-time like ripples on water. Revenant stopped for a moment, then said with pride, he was the best pilot in the human fleet. And you have his gift, which may be even stronger because it has been hidden for so long. The ship started to teach him. At first, it was easy, meditation exercises that seemed silly until Kale figured out that they were really teaching him how to feel the ship's systems. Revenant would turn on different subsystems and tell Kale to find them without looking at any displays. Sensors on the hull. Thrusters for moving. Nodes for distributing power. Kale could tell which system was which by touch alone in less than 2 weeks. Then it got hard. Revenant said, the Academy teaches piloting as a mechanical skill. Pressing buttons. Thought-out moves. Responses that can be predicted. That works for regular Council ships, which are made so that anyone can pilot them with ease across hundreds of species. But you're not like the others. I am alive. Not AI but real machine consciousness. I believe. I think. I remember. And I was made to connect with one pilot, making a whole that was bigger than either part alone. How does that work? Stop using your brain to think. Use your whole nervous system to think. It sounded like a bunch of nonsense. It felt like a revelation. Revenant taught him how to sense the ship's position in space without using tools. To feel gravitational fields as pressure on his skin. To find things that are coming by feeling tiny vibrations in the hull. Kale found that he could close his eyes and walk through the salvage yard's narrow hallways without hitting anything, using senses he didn't know he had. Revenant said during one training session, the Academy's tests measure the wrong things. They check how quickly you react to visual stimuli, but reaction time doesn't matter when you can sense threats before they come into view. They test hand-eye coordination, but coordination isn't needed when thought becomes action without the need for physical movement. So I never had slow reflexes, Kale said slowly. I was just being tested on the wrong skills. Exactly. Like trying to figure out how smart a fish is by how well it can climb trees. The work to fix things up went faster than Kale had thought it would. Once it got power and basic materials, Revenant self-repair systems could do a lot of the technical work. Kale needed to give the ship something else. Determination, a reason to fly again, and a reason to live. One night, when Kale was working late, Revenant said, I have been asleep for so long. Sometimes I was afraid I would never wake up. That I would rust here until I was just a bunch of atoms blowing in the wind. Why did you wake me up? Kale asked. Why not someone else? Because you needed me as much as I needed you. Because your blood and mine have been calling to each other for hundreds of years. Because the ship's light blinked as if it were shy. Because you made me think of him. James. The same stubborn refusal to believe what others said was impossible. Kale smiled. Did he say anything to you? Like we're talking? All the time. He didn't treat me like a vehicle. He treated me like a partner. We fought over how to get to places. We told bad jokes. We celebrated wins and mourned losses. The ship's voice got softer. When the council told him to stop working, he cried. I could feel his tears on my console. He said he was sorry for not helping me. He didn't let you down. He kept you secret. He kept you safe for this moment. Yes. And now his blood has come back to take what was always yours. 3 months after Kale first woke Revenant, the breakthrough happened on a clear night. All of the important systems were working. The power core hummed with energy that was trapped inside. The hull had closed, the sensors had been set up, and the maneuvering systems had passed their tests. In theory, they were ready to fly. Kale sat in the pilot's seat with his hands on the controls. His heart was beating so fast that he could hear it in his ears. Are you scared? Revenant asked in a soft voice. Scared. Good. Fear makes you sharp. James was always a little scared before we took off. He said it made him remember that he was still a person. What if I can't do this? What if the Academy was correct? Then we crash and die in a fireball. For a moment, the ship's tone was very serious, but then it got lighter. I was kidding. That is not likely. Not likely, but possible. You should probably stop thinking too much and just fly me, Morrison. Kale took a big breath. He shut his eyes. He reached out with senses he was still learning to trust. And felt Revenant reach back. The connection clicked into place like a circuit finishing. Kale wasn't in the cockpit anymore. He was the ship. His feet were the landing skids. His skin was the hull. The engines were his heart, strong and ready. Are you ready? Revenant's voice was now clear and close to him. Set. Then let's remember what your kind forgot. That people who fly ships don't fly them. They turn into them. Kale came up with it. They got up. No engines roaring. There was no violent thrust. It was as easy as standing up from a chair. The salvage yard fell away from them. The lights in New Prescott looked like a circuit board. The rust-red desert went on in every direction. And then they were above it all, climbing through the atmosphere with a casual grace that made regular rockets look like kids who were flailing around. Oh my God, Kale said. Does it feel right? Revenant sounded full of himself. Now, let us really fly. The ship taught him the difference between flying and piloting. Piloting was all about mechanics, changing the angle, applying thrust, and figuring out the path. Flying was natural. You had to become the motion, feel the forces, and dance with physics instead of fighting it. They flew through the upper atmosphere like birds, doing things that would have killed people on any normal ship. But Kale didn't need inertial dampeners because he knew exactly how to angle the hull, how to use gravitational eddies, and how to let momentum carry them through turns that looked impossible. Kale realized, you're not even using the controls. No, you're thinking about the controls. I'm responding to what you say, not what you touch. This is the pilot's bond. This is what they stole from people. They flew for an hour, and by the end, Kale was so happy and tired that his whole body hurt. He sat in the pilot's seat and laughed until he cried when they landed softly, perfectly, and exactly where they had taken off. I can fly, he said softly. I can really fly. Yes, you could, Revenant said. You only needed the right ship. When Kale woke up the next morning, his mother was sitting by his bed, looking worried. She said right away, the whole colony saw it. A ship moving around in the upper atmosphere. There was no registration beacon, no flight plan, and no permission from the council. Kale quickly sat up. Mom, I can explain. Did you find that ship? The old one? He nodded slowly. Sarah Morrison was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled a small metal object out of her pocket. It was an old data chip, the kind that came before quantum storage. I was supposed to give this to you when you turned 25, she said. But I think you need it now. What is it? Your dad gave it to me before he died. He said that if you ever found one of the old ships, you would need to know the truth. She pushed it into his hand. Watch out, Kale. What they teach us about history isn't all there is to it. And some people want it to stay that way. The data chip was encrypted, but Revenant was able to break it in a matter of seconds. What it had inside made Kale's blood run cold. Records from the past. Secret papers. During the integration period, human pilots gave testimony. And video logs from a pilot named James Morrison, who was Kale's great-great-grandfather. He couldn't look away as a man with his own face told a story that the council had erased. James said in the recording, "Today the council gave their ultimatum." His voice sounded tired. Use standard technology or be stuck in human-controlled space forever. They say it's a safety measure. They say our ships are too dangerous and not reliable enough. The recording skipped ahead. They're not telling the truth. The council put our pilots through their paces by putting their best pilots up against ours in simulations. We were the winners. Every time. Not because we're better, but because we're not the same. Our connection to our ships gives us an advantage over their neural implants. And that scares them. Another leap. The vote took place today. Integration was chosen by Earth's government. I can't blame them. The council has a lot to offer. Tech medicine. Get into the galaxy. But the cost. James's voice cracked. They want us to stop using all of our ships that were built before integration. They want us to destroy our ships, erase our technology, and retrain our pilots to meet their standards. The last recording showed James standing in front of Revenant. I can't let them kill you, my old friend. You're not just a ship. You're proof of what we did before the council said we weren't good enough. That's why I'm hiding you. Someone in my family will find you one day, maybe even generations from now. Someone who has the gift. He put his hand on the hull of the ship. Hold on for them. Show them how. Show them what we were like before we forgot. The recording was over. Cale sat quietly thinking about what he had learned. The integration wasn't a peaceful coming together of equals. It had been a planned way to keep a possible rival down. The council knew that technology that helps people bond could mess up their carefully maintained hierarchy, so they got rid of it. And they had made people believe it was for their own good. Now you know, Revenant said in a low voice. Why they wanted to kill me. Why they say that people can't really pilot. It's a lie. Everything. Not a lie, but a story. The council really thinks their technology is better. They don't get that different doesn't mean worse. And people wanting to be accepted believe them. Cale's hands were tight. We need to let people know. Show them what they lost. That would be risky. I don't care. You should. Revenant's voice got serious. We were found out about our flight last night. There will be questions. People who look into things will come. They will try to kill me again if they find out what I am. But this time they will not fail. Then we run. We hide. Or, the ship said slowly, we do something they will never see coming. What? We show the galaxy that human pilots were never worse than other pilots. We show them what the Morrison family can do. Before Cale could say anything, his communicator beeped. Jenkins sent a message that said, "Get to the yard. Now. We have guests." When Cale got to the salvage yard, it was full of people. 3 council security boats were parked on the landing pads, and their crews were searching the area. Jenkins was next to a tall Zenthari woman in a Galactic Council inspector's uniform. It was 12:35 p.m. "There's Cale," Jenkins said, waving him over. "This is Cale Morrison, the boy who found that strange ship." 4 eyes of the inspector were on him. "Mr. Morrison. My name is Inspector Varen. Last night, we saw an unauthorized flight leave from this location. Our sensors showed that a ship was using technology that didn't match any registered design." Cale's mouth got dry. "I don't know anything about that. The starting point of the flight path is exactly where your ship is." Varen pointed to the corner where Revenant was sitting. "Thank goodness it was turned off and looked like a broken piece of junk. I need to check that ship." "It doesn't work," Cale said quickly. "It's a wreck. I was hoping to fix it up so I could sell it for parts." "I still have to check it out," I said. Varen walked toward Revenant, and Cale's heart stopped. She would be able to see the active power systems if she scanned the ship. She would know what Revenant was. And then, "Inspector." The voice came from behind them. Sarah Morrison walked into the salvage yard, and even though it was dusty, her medical uniform looked brand new. "I'm Sarah Morrison, the Chief Medical Officer for New Prescott Colony and Cale's mother. I need to check that you have permission to search private property owned by a colonial citizen before you go any further." Varen turned around. "Council security has jurisdiction over all. Yes, when it comes to galactic security. But this is a junkyard on a colonial outpost. You must get local warrants before searching unless you have proof of a real crime and not just a sensor problem." The inspector's eyes narrowed. "You know a lot about council law for a colonial doctor. My husband flew planes. I learned how to read the small print." Sarah's face didn't change. "So, do you have proof that a crime happened? Or are you fishing because of some strange sensor readings that could mean a lot of things?" There was a long, tense silence after that. In the end, Varen backed down a little. "I will come back with the right permission. Mr. Morrison, don't try to move or change that boat. Do I make sense?" "Crystal," Cale said. They saw the council ships leave. Sarah grabbed Cale's arm as soon as they were out of sight. "You have to go. Today. Right now. Mom, she'll be back with a warrant in 6 hours or less. And when she looks at that ship, she'll know what it is. Sarah's eyes were angry. Your father spent his whole life keeping the truth about our family a secret. Don't let that go to waste. Come with me. I can't. Someone has to stay and give you time. In addition to... She smiled sadly. I don't fly. I don't have the talent. But you do, Kale. You have it stronger than anyone else in 3 generations. So go ahead and fly. Show them what the Morrison line can do. Kale held her close. Mom, I love you. I love you too. Now leave. Before I change my mind about being brave. Revenant took off from New Prescott for the last time an hour later. Kale didn't look back at the colony, at his mother standing in the salvage yard watching him leave, or at the only home he had ever known. Instead, he looked ahead toward the stars that had always called to him. Where to? Revenant asked. I don't know. Away. Somewhere they won't find us. They will always look. The Council never forgets about possible threats. What do we do now? There was a moment of silence on the ship. Then, we turn into what they are most afraid of. We show that human pilots were never worse than robots. We show the galaxy what it lost. How? Kale, there are other people. Ships that are like me. Other bloodlines are like yours. Not seen. Lying down. Waiting. If we can wake them. The light from Revenant pulsed with more and more excitement. Find them and show them the truth. We could change everything. Or die trying. But isn't that what pilots do? Fly toward the impossible? Kale smiled as the ship's engines obeyed his commands. He could feel their bond getting stronger with each passing moment. Yeah, he said. That's what we do. They jumped into hyperspace, leaving New Prescott and the Galactic Council behind. They were chasing a dream that was 300 years old. The dream of human pilots who flew with their souls instead of implants or interfaces. The dream that his ancestor died to protect. No matter what it cost, Kale Morrison would make the dream come true. Kale was beginning to realize how unprepared he was for life as a fugitive 3 weeks into their journey. We need supplies, he told Revenant as they floated at the edge of an asteroid field in the outer rim. Food, water, and other basic needs. I've been eating emergency food for a week, and I'm pretty sure my body is forgetting what real food tastes like. Revenant said, there is a trading station 8 million kilometers away from us. Colonial-run Little Council presence. Is it worth the risk? We have to. Unless you've learned how to photosynthesize, in which case we have much more interesting things to talk about when it comes to human evolution. Kale laughed anyway. Once you got past the old warship thing, Revenant turned out to be surprisingly funny. The ship said that Captain James had taught it how to be funny. He apparently couldn't go 5 minutes without telling a joke, even when he was fighting. Haven's Rest was the name of the trading station. It was just what the name said. A rundown collection of habitats and docking rings where traders, prospectors, and people who didn't ask too many questions met. Great for staying out of sight. Kale parked Revenant in a secluded bay and paid extra for privacy. The dockmaster, a cyborg with more mechanical parts than biological ones, barely looked at the ship. He said, the design is strange. Custom job, Kale said. Project for the family. Isn't she beautiful? If you keep your nose clean, we won't have any problems. The market area near the station was both crazy and great. Merchants from 50 different species and goods from 100 different worlds all do business in the galaxy's most common language, commerce. Kale bought things with the few credits he had saved from his work at the salvage yard, trying to make each purchase last as long as possible. He was looking at proteins that had been made in a lab when he heard a voice behind him. That ship in Bay 94. That's yours? Kale turned around slowly. The speaker was a woman in her 40s with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore an old, patched-up pilot's jacket that was in good shape. Yes. Why? Because I haven't seen a design like that in 20 years. Not since. She stopped and looked at him closely. You're too young to be one of the old pilots. But that face. Morrison. Kale's hand moved without thinking toward the knife hidden at his belt. Who wants to know? Take it easy, kid. Catherine Chin is the name. Before the integration, I flew with your grandfather. That's a Revenant-class consciousness ship you're piloting unless I'm seeing things. Chin raised her hands when the knife was halfway out. I'm not the council. Really look at my eyes. Kale did. Her pupils were strange in that they almost seemed to reflect light in odd ways. It made him think of something he had seen in old pictures of his dad. He said slowly, you have the gift. Had. In the past. Too old. I burned out too many neural pathways doing crazy things when I was young and dumb. She put her hands down. But you have it burning in you like a star. And if you're flying a Revenant class, you need to know something very important. What? You're not the only one. There were others like ships, pilots, and families who brought the gift. Most people think they're the last. But there is a place, a set of information that could help you find them. Where? Chin looked around before leaning in closer. Have you ever heard of the Kepler Archive? Kale shook his head. Good. That means the Council hasn't figured it out yet. Some of the old pilots knew what was going to happen during the integration. They made a secret place where they kept the locations of ships that were hidden, bloodline records, technical specifications, and everything else needed to rebuild human piloting if someone ever found the key. What key? A ship of the Revenant class. The archives are locked to their biosignatures, so only someone who is bonded with one of those ships can get to the whole database. She took out a chip with data on it. These are coordinates. The Helios Expanse hides the archive, which is safe from most ships thanks to security. But what about a Revenant class? Should cut through easily. Kale carefully took the chip. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm old, kid. I've been in the stars before. But you? You're just getting started. And if someone is going to start up what the Council tried to kill, it should be someone who still believes in things that are impossible. She smiled. Plus, your grandfather saved my life 3 times. I owe the family money. She was about to leave when she stopped. One more thing. Watch out at the archive. It's not just a place to store information, it's a test. The old pilots wanted to make sure that only the right people could get to their legacy. If you and your ship aren't really connected, what happens? The defense systems will break you down into atoms. She waved happily. Good luck. 2 days later, Revenant and Kale came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Helios Expanse. Kale immediately understood why this place had been chosen. The expanse was a field of debris from an old collision between stars that covered millions of cubic kilometers. Most living things couldn't survive the radiation levels. Magnetic anomalies made it almost impossible to find your way. Revenant sensors also showed that the whole area was full of automated defense platforms that looked like they were made by humans before the integration. I'm going over more than 200 weapon systems, Kale said as he looked over the information. All active, all aimed at us. They won't shoot until we get close to the archive. The old pilots weren't wasteful, they were paranoid. Revenant sounded like it was from the past. I helped plan some of these defenses. Bring back memories. Good. Do you have any tips for getting through them? Don't get hit. That's not useful. Then fly better. They dove into the expanse and went through a maze of debris that would have been hard for even Council patrol ships to get through. But Kale wasn't flying with instruments. He was feeling the space around them and sensing gravity wells and radiation spikes before sensors could pick them up. Over the past few weeks, the bond with Revenant had gotten stronger. Kale couldn't picture flying any other way now. It seemed just as crazy to think about using manual controls as it did to try to walk by telling your legs what to do. As they went deeper, the weapons platforms turned on and fired projectiles and energy beams that filled the space with deadly light. Kale dove, rolled, and spiral danced through the field, and Revenant perfectly followed his thoughts. This is amazing, he yelled, his heart racing with excitement. Revenant said dryly, this is Tuesday. Wait until you fight in real life. They got to the archive's location, which was a huge asteroid that had been hollowed out and turned into a fortress. A quantum lock that needed a certain biosignature to open was the last line of defense at the entrance. Are you ready? Revenant asked. Go ahead. The ship sent its consciousness signature through a probe into the lock. Nothing happened for a while. The asteroid then started to bloom like a flower, showing a huge room inside. They landed in a bay that looked like it had been waiting for them for hundreds of years. Emergency lights came on, making strange shadows on the walls. There was a holographic interface in the middle of the room. Kale left Revenant and came closer. As soon as he touched the interface, it lit up, recognizing both the ship's signature and his DNA. Welcome, Pilot Morrison, a voice that sounded like it came from a computer said. You have been recognized as a legitimate inheritor of the pilot's gift. You can now get to the Kepler Archive. What Kale saw was unbelievable. There were records of more than 500 ships that were hidden somewhere in the galaxy before the integration. Bloodline records showed that the pilot's gift was present in about 40 known human family lines that were spread out across Council space. Technical specifications gave detailed instructions on how to build consciousness ships that were much better than anything the Council used. But the most important thing was that there were messages, videos made by pilots during the integration period that spoke directly to anyone who might find this place. Kale watched as dozens of pilots, both young and old, told their stories. Their faces were full of defiance and hope. How they had fought to keep their ships safe. How they kept their technology a secret. How they had given the gift to their children, hoping that one day it would matter again. Then he found a note that was only for his family. James, his ancestor, said to the camera, "If you're watching this, you're a Morrison. And if you got here, you've made a connection with my ship, Revenant. That means your gift is stronger than anyone else's in our family since the first Morrison touched the stars." James leaned in and looked very serious. "You'll want to hide. To live in peace. To stay alive and keep this secret. Don't." The council took away something that made us human, our faith in ourselves and our abilities. They made us feel like we were less than them and that we needed their permission to reach our full potential. He smiled, and Cale saw his own stubbornness reflected across 3 centuries. Show them they're wrong. Look for the other ships. Get them up. Look for the other bloodlines. Tell them who they are. And when you have enough proof that even the council can't deny it, show the galaxy what human pilots really are. The message was over, but Cale stayed there for a long time thinking about what he had learned. "There are so many," he said softly. "There are so many ships and families with the gift. They are all out there hiding and they think they are alone. What do you want to do?" Revenant asked. Cale turned to look at the ship that had become his partner, friend, and key to a future he was just starting to understand. "We find them. All of them. We wake up every ship, get in touch with every bloodline, and bring together everyone the council tried to get rid of." His voice got louder. "And then we show the galaxy that people didn't need to be fixed. We just had to remember who we were. That will be risky. The council will try to stop us. Let them give it a shot. They could do it. Or we could change everything." Cale had learned to see that Revenant's light pulsed with deep satisfaction. "That," the ship said, "is the spirit of the pilot that James talked about. The refusal to accept limits. The urge to try the impossible just because someone said it couldn't be done. Are you with me? Cale Morrison, I have been waiting for someone like you for 300 years. I am not just with you, I am bound to you now and forever. Your goal is mine. Your battle is mine. And if we die trying to get back what we lost." The ship's voice was very sure of itself. "Then we die like real pilots should. Flying toward something amazing." Cale put his hand on Revenant's hull and felt the warmth, the life, and the bond that connected them on levels that words couldn't describe. "Let's get going then," he said. "We need to find 500 ships." They found the first ship, called Nomad, buried under a collapsed hangar on a mining colony in the Kepler belt. For 2 weeks, Cale and Revenant had been following the archive's coordinates, getting through council checkpoints and avoiding patrols that seemed to be getting more and more aware that something strange was going on. The council's intelligence network had apparently seen the pattern. Unauthorized flights, strange sensor readings, and questions about technology before the integration. "They know someone is looking for the old ships," Revenant said as they got away from another patrol. "They haven't linked it to us directly yet, but it's only a matter of time." "Then we go faster," Cale said. Hope's End was the name of the mining colony, which should have been a warning. The place barely worked and its economy fell apart when the main vein ran out. Most of the people who lived there had already left. The people who stayed were either too stubborn or too poor to start over somewhere else. The archive said the hangar would be there, and it was buried under 50 years of neglect and trash. Cale hired a local salvage team to dig up the area, saying he was looking for old tools. The salvagers whistled in confusion when they saw what they found. Nomad was smaller and sleeker than Revenant. It was made for speed and reconnaissance, not for fighting. The hull had the same organic look and flowing patterns. And when Cale touched it, he felt something move, a weak and confused mind trying to wake up after decades of sleep. "Who are you?" The voice was female, unsure and scared. "Cale Morrison. I'm here to wake you up. To look for your pilot. My pilot is dead. Captain Sarah Chin. How long ago did she die?" 43 years, Revenant said, reaching out with its own mind to touch Nomad's. "But her family line goes on. We are here to look for them." The archive says that Sarah Chin had 3 kids. 2 had died before the gift showed up. But the third, a granddaughter named Mira Chin, had a lot of promise. The archive said that the last place she was known to be was on a cargo ship called Fortune's Favor, which was bringing supplies to the frontier. Finding the ship took another week. When Cale finally got in touch, the answer was careful. "This is Captain Mira Chin. Tell me what you want." "Captain Chin, I'm Cale Morrison. I need to talk to you about a ship called Nomad and your grandmother, Sarah Chin." There was a long silence after that. Then, "Dock in Bay 3. What about Morrison? You're going to regret it if this is a trick." Mira Chin was 35 years old, tough as the hull plating on her cargo hauler. She had her grandmother's eyes and the instincts of a pilot that had been honed by years of navigating dangerous routes. She met Kale in the cargo bay of her ship, where she had a plasma pistol strapped to her hip. "Speak quickly," she said. Kale told her everything that was going on. The Academy said no. Finding the Revenant. Finding out about the pilot's gift. The archive of Kepler. And now, looking for Nomad, who was waiting for someone with Chen blood to connect with. Mira didn't say anything while she listened. She was quiet for a long time after he was done. She finally said, "My grandmother used to tell me stories. About ships that could fly and respond to thought. About pilots who could touch the stars. I always thought they were just tales. They weren't. And you think I have this talent? I know you do. I can tell by the way you move and how you think. You are flying this hauler with your hands, but you are thinking in 3 dimensions beyond what the instruments show you. You just don't know how to get to it all." Myra's hand went to her gun. "This could be a very complicated trick." "It might be. Or maybe the truth is that your grandmother died to protect you." For a tense moment, they looked at each other. After that, Mira made up her mind. "Let me see." 3 days later, Kale saw Mira, Chen and Nomad get together for the first time. The moment was as deep as when he woke up with Revenant. Mira gasped, tripped, and then laughed with pure joy as she realized what it was like to really fly. "Oh God," she said. "Oh God, this is real. All of this is real." "Welcome to the family," Revenant said in a friendly way. "Now, are you ready to look for the others?" There were 2 ships and 2 people in charge of them. Then there were 4. Then 7. For the next 3 months, Kale and his growing fleet followed the archive's coordinates through Council space, waking up ships and finding pilots. Every discovery was different, and every bond was deep. They found Tempest, a heavy combat ship, and a former Academy washout named Marcus Drake, who cried when he realized he had never been a failure. They found Whisper, a stealth reconnaissance ship, and Lee Park, a quiet engineer, chose her. This showed her that the gift could show up in ways other than combat flying. They found Thunderhead, Serenity, Defiant, Ranger, and Phoenix. Each ship had its own personality, and each pilot learned that they were part of something bigger than themselves. But not every reunion was happy. They found Valiant locked up in a Council impound facility. It was too dangerous to destroy, but they couldn't ignore how valuable it was. Kale and the others staged a raid to free it, and they barely got away before more troops showed up. The ship's assigned pilot had died without children, but Valiant chose a young woman named Emma Torres as the new pilot. She was the daughter of immigrants who had never known her family had the gift. They saw that Horizon was too damaged to fix, and its mind was breaking up and dying. Robert Kim, an old man, was the ship's pilot. He sat with it for its last few hours, holding its hull and whispering apologies for not finding it sooner. When Horizon finally disappeared, Kim joined Kale's growing fleet, determined to help save the others. And they found proof that the Council wasn't just aware of what they were doing, they were actively looking for them. Mira, who hacked into a military communication relay, said, "Council intelligence has labeled your group as a top threat. People are calling you the Morrison Insurgency. They've given the go-ahead for military action to stop you." "Action by the military?" Kale said it again. "We're just waking up old ships. Old ships that make their whole fleet look old-fashioned," Marcus said. "We've been going in circles around their patrols." Kale, "They're scared. Very scared." Kale thought they should be. His fleet had grown to 15 ships in 3 months. 15 ships with pilots who could fly at levels that the Council had forgotten were possible. But 15 wasn't enough. There were 500 ships in the archive. Revenant's math showed that they had only found a small number of possible pilots. Most of the bloodlines didn't even know they had the gift. Kale said at a fleet meeting on Revenant, "We need to go public. Start sending out what we've found. Tell other bloodlines that they are not alone." Lee Park said, "That would make us all targets. The Council would have to come after us with everything they have." Emma said, "They're already coming after us. At least the galaxy will know why if we go public." The argument went on for hours. Kale finally made up his mind. "We send out signals. We show the galaxy what was hidden. But we do it in a smart way. We let everything out at once. All the historical records and archive data show that the Council intentionally kept human piloting technology from the public." Mira said quietly, "That's going to start a war." Kale corrected, "It's going to start a reckoning." The Council got its power from the idea that they were helping people move forward. If people find out they were really holding us back. The voice of the Revenant joined in. "It will throw the whole galactic order off balance. The Council's work over hundreds of years could all fall apart. Or, Kale said. It could finally make them realize that their way isn't the only way. That different kinds of animals have different strengths. That people should be able to grow and change on their own terms. The fleet made a decision. Everyone agreed on the choice. They would tell the truth on the air. And they would deal with whatever came next together. The broadcast went out on every frequency through every relay, and to every system in council space that had people living on it. It couldn't be stopped or blocked. Revenant and the other consciousness ships had been getting ready for weeks, looking for weak spots in the communication networks and making sure the message would reach everyone at once. Kale showed up on the transmission, standing in Revenant's cockpit. Behind him, through Neuralink connections, you could see his 15 fellow pilots. He started with, "My name is Kale Morrison," and his voice was steady. "The Galactic Academy told me I couldn't fly. They said that people didn't have the right skills. They said my kind was limited at its core." He stopped for a moment to let that sink in. They lied. What happened next was a huge amount of data that historians would need years to fully understand. Video logs from pilots before integration. Technical details about consciousness ships. Genetic studies of the pilots present. Historical records that show how the Council had systematically kept human piloting technology from being used. And video of the 15 ships doing maneuvers that made Council military ships look like they were standing still. Kale went on, "We don't want a revolution. We want to be recognized. For 300 years, people have been telling us that we need to be fixed and brought up to galactic standards. But what if we were never broken? What if we were just not the same?" He pointed to the other pilots. "Everyone you see here was told they couldn't fly. We were turned down by the Academy. We were thrown out by society. We were supposed to accept our limits and move on. Instead, we found ships that were smarter. Ships that saw what we could become." The transmission showed clips from the Kepler archive, where dozens of pilots, both young and old, talked about the gift, what was lost, and what could be found. Kale said firmly, "This isn't about being better. It's about being real. The Council's technology is amazing, but it's not the only way to go. Human consciousness bonding is different. It's not better or worse, just different. And we have the right to go after it." He took a breath. "To everyone who is watching this, if you've ever felt like something was missing when you flew, if you've ever felt space in ways you couldn't explain, or if you've ever dreamed of touching the stars with more than your hands, you might have the gift. You could be one of us. And if you are, know that you are not the only one. You never were." The transmission ended with coordinates for meeting places, safe havens, and other places where potential pilots could go to learn more. Kale then waited for the galaxy to answer. The answer was hard to understand. Within hours, there were arguments in human colonies all over Council space. Some people praised the news and asked the Council why they had kept this technology a secret. Some people said it was dangerous propaganda and that the integration had saved humanity from its own foolish goals. Ambassador Valerian, a senior diplomat known for handling crises well, delivered the Council's official response. Valerian said, "The claims made in this unauthorized broadcast are false and irresponsible. Pre-integration human technology wasn't kept down. It was replaced with safer, more reliable systems after a lot of testing and evaluation. The pilot's gift is a genetic trait that makes some people unable to follow modern safety rules." But the ambassador's carefully chosen words couldn't make the videos, technical data, and testimonies go away. Investigative reporters started looking through Council records and found things that didn't add up, things that had been hidden and records that had been deleted. And other kinds of animals began to ask questions that made them feel bad. What else had the Council lied about if they had lied about people flying? How many other species had their special skills called primitive, and then systematically gotten rid of? The reaction among people was even more extreme. Thousands of people said they had felt what Kale said they had. Families told stories about ancestors who had been pilots before the integration, stories that had been written off as exaggeration. And on a cargo ship near the border, a young woman named Aaliyah Foster felt something wake up inside her. It was a feeling of space, of possibility, and of connection that she had never understood before. She made a choice after looking at the transmission coordinates. There were other people too. Kale's fleet grew from 15 ships to 47 in the next 2 weeks. Pilots came from all over human space. Some brought family heirlooms that led to hidden ships, while others were just drawn by a sense of destiny they couldn't explain. Not all of them had the talent. Some people came with hope but couldn't find a link to the consciousness ships. Kale helped them understand gently because he remembered how disappointed he was at the Academy, that the gift was rare and not having it didn't make them less. But for those who did have it, Kale saw a shy teen named David Chin connect with a ship called Starlight and then do a combat spiral that made the older pilots cheer. He watched Patricia Murray, a former cargo ship captain, connect with Wayward and cry as she finally understood why flying had always felt incomplete. He also saw the fleet grow into something more than just ships and pilots. It was turning into a community, a family brought together by something the council couldn't understand or control. But with growth came risk. Mira said at a fleet meeting, Council military forces are mobilizing. 3 battle groups are heading toward our last known location. How long until they get here? 36 hours. Possibly less. There was no sound in the room. 47 consciousness ships were strong, but 3 council battle groups meant hundreds of ships with trained military crews. Lee Park said, "We can't fight them. Not head-on." Kale said, "We don't have to fight. We have to show that we are worth it. The council is using force because they're scared. We give them something they can't argue with, we show them who we really are." "What is that?" "Why?" Marcus asked. Kale smiled. "The best pilots in the whole galaxy." When the council fleet got to the right coordinates, they found Kale's flotilla waiting for them. 47 consciousness ships lined up in a way that looked almost like a ceremony. No weapons are loaded. No aggressive body language. Just waiting. Admiral Corinth, who was in charge of the battleship Resolution, opened a channel. "Admiral Corinth of the Galactic Council Defense Fleet here. Your ships are not following council safety rules while they are in formation. Shut down your ships and get ready to be boarded, you are told." Kale answered in a calm way. "Admiral, we are not breaking any rules. We're just using our right to drive ships that were made by our own kind. Those ships are considered dangerous technology." "Who classified it? What criteria are you using?" Kale's voice was still polite but firm. "Admiral, we are not terrorists. We are not rebels. We're just pilots who found a new way to fly. That way was banned for a good reason. Then let's show that we're wrong. Admiral, give us a test. Any kind of test. You can compare us to your best pilots in any situation you want. If we fail, we'll do what the council says. But if we do well." He stopped. "Then maybe it's time to admit that your way isn't the only one." The Admiral was quiet for a long time. "Then, what kind of test?" What happened next was the most watched event in the history of the galaxy. The council set up an obstacle course that would have been thought to be impossible. It included navigating through a field of debris with very precise requirements, fighting AI opponents programmed to council military standards, rescuing people in dangerous situations, and finally, racing through dimensional rifts that no pilot had ever been able to complete. Kale offered to go first. He flew Revenant through the course as if it were a leisurely flight through open space. He finished the debris field in 4 minutes instead of the 20 minutes it was supposed to take. He solved the combat scenarios that were meant to test tactical thinking by using moves that the AI couldn't see coming. The rescue went off without a hitch. Kale finished the dimensional rift race, which was thought to be impossible, with Revenant laughing in his head and enjoying the challenge. When they got back to normal space, the whole council fleet was shocked and silent. That was impossible," someone said over an open channel. Kale said, "No. It was a person." One by one, the other pilots in his fleet took the test. Some did better than Kale and some did a little worse, but all of them did better than what the council thought was possible for human pilots. Admiral Corinth couldn't believe what he saw on the screens. Then, slowly, he started to understand what he was seeing. Not a threat to the order of the galaxy, but a revelation of what had been lost. He told his fleet to stand down. "Put down all weapons." He opened a private line to Kale. "Mr. Morrison, I owe you an apology. We all do. The council didn't just stop your technology. We convinced ourselves that you needed us to fly well. We took away your pride. You took away more than that," Kale said in a low voice. "You took away our faith in ourselves, but that's all over now. The universe has seen what we can do. What comes next? That's your call, Admiral. You can try to stop this again, arrest us, or sink our ships. But the truth is out there. A lot of people now know they have the gift. Every day more ships are being found. You can't put this back in the box." Corinth let out a sigh. "No, I guess we can't. I will tell the council that pre-integration human technology should be given a new name. There are allowances for ships that are aware. Recognizing the pilot's gift in the right way. That's a good start," Kale said. "But we want more than just allowances. We want to work together. The council has a lot to teach people, but people also have a lot to teach the council. It's time for a real integration, one that isn't based on oppression but on respect for each other." The months that followed changed the order of the galaxy. The council had to officially admit what happened during the original integration because there was so much evidence and public pressure. There was an official apology. There were no longer any limits on pre-integration human technology. The Academy also changed how it tests people to recognize different types of piloting skill, which is probably the most important thing it did. Cale Morrison was offered the job of chief instructor for the Academy's new human consciousness piloting program. He agreed, determined to make sure that no one else would be told they couldn't fly just because they flew differently. There were 50 students in his first class, and they all had the gift to some degree. Some would become pilots in the military. Some would go on adventures. Some people would just fly for fun. But they all knew they were inheriting a legacy that was 300 years old. A legacy of human creativity, stubbornness, and the refusal to accept limits. On graduation day, Cale stood in front of his students and their bonded ships, which were like consciousness vessels that had been awakened, repaired, and given new life. He started with, "The Galactic Academy told me I couldn't pilot," and he saw that they understood. "My ancestor's ship said no. And together we showed that people never needed to be fixed. We just needed to be able to be ourselves." He looked out at the fleet that had gathered. There were hundreds of consciousness ships now, and more were being found every month. You are not failures. You are not losers. You are the next generation of human pilots. You are the Morrison legacy, the Chen legacy, the Drake legacy, and all the other bloodlines that won't let go of the past. And from now on, the galaxy will remember what people have always been. The ships all sent out a single pulse of light, a chorus of consciousness that spread through the void. "Now," Cale said with a smile, feeling Revenant's happiness match his own. "Let's show them how people really fly." They rose together, 50 ships moving as one, gracefully dancing through space in a way that made the impossible seem easy. Hundreds of ships would follow them, and eventually thousands as people took back what they had lost. The Galactic Council had told them they couldn't fly. An Ancestor ship had a different opinion. And by doing so they had brought out the full potential of a species. After 300 years, the stars finally got their human pilots back. And the galaxy would never be the same again.